Yes. So coming to the next topic in constitution, it is DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy. Right. So what is it actually? Say, if you look at the concept of state, the concept of modern nation state is itself of European origin or Western origin. Say, to put it in a simple language, say it is the Westerners who are behind the formation of modern state. What is a modern state? What do you call as a modern state? Today we have more than around 200 states, right? The world map. What do you call as a modern state? Why do you call it as a modern? Right. While studying world history, you'll come to know, right? So where after 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia. So that started certain trends in the world politics. Previously, if you talk about politics, politics about what? It is simply about wars, right? So which kingdom fought with which kingdom, right? So whether the Roman Empire fought with the Turkish Empire, such things were the thing. So which is polity as well as history. So there was no right real concentration on the state or politics or about the welfare of the people. It is only after right so 1650s the concept of modern state began to emerge. So we know state is a common term for both, right? So a country, a nation, as well as a state. We simply call it as a state. Where territory based, right, nationality based states began to emerge. Today we say India, which means people living in India are Indians, right? So we have a homogeneous content. Despite our diversity, we have a homogeneous content. So France, which means what? French people, right? There's a mono-national state. We say, our interests may differ, but we use the term mono-national. That is, we all identify with a particular state, right? China for Chinese, right? Pakistan for Pakistanis, and India for Indians, right? So if you don't identify with India, then who you are? Not anti-Indian, but alien. Yes, okay, right? The alien. That is, you might be right. So having some interest on your own, right? Suppose if I am asking for a separate Kashmir, then what? I am just right. So putting the interest of Kashmiri or my identity of Kashmiri before the Indian interest. I am putting my interest of Nagalim right before my Indian interest. Such things, right? So therefore, this very concept of state emerged only after the 1650s when people began to identify themselves with the state, right? So previously, it was not that. It is something empire or kingdom. One king, when one king, right? So conquers a territory, then he becomes the king. The kingdom may change its name or it changes dynasty. People have nothing to do with it. Whereas, right, so now, right, nobody can change anything without the consent of the people. So came the democracy, right? So political parties, institutions. Of course, it's a general understanding. It's only for democracy. But still, most of the states are aware of that. We can say nearly 50% of the states in the world are democracies. So in such scenario, right, the evolution of state took place from the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th century. Say in the 18th, 19th, and till the middle of the 20th century, war was a common thing. So a common thing which happened throughout the world. Now, if two countries are at war with each other, what do you say? How do you think? It is not a normal behavior. It is something different, right? Why it is not normal? Because as the day progresses, as the history progresses, we become more civilized, right? In the sense that, right? So we began to look for peace. We began to look for progression. We began to look for development. What does that all mean? That the state has more role to play. Apart from suppressing, oppressing, or subjecting the people, the state is going to have a positive role. Say now, what are the roles of state? What does the Indian state do? Welfare. In one word, put it, welfare, right? So this right need for welfare has been mentioned in the form of directive principles of state policy. say our preamble says India to be a sovereign, secular, so and so, right? So and to assure all its citizens justice, liberty, equality, and rights. So here in this scenario, right, how the state is going to do that? It must have some policies, right? And that policies, that basis is the things. So principles of state policy, and they come in the form of directives. What I'm giving direction to the state, right? Do this, do that, right? This is what directive principles of state policy, right? Now, say these directives are they strictly to be followed? No, right? Why now? Of course, for that we have to understand the content of this directives. Say these directives were borrowed from which constitution? Irish constitution. Say only a welfare state can have directives. Only a welfare state can have, right, this principles of state policy. Not all other states, right? China do not have any directive principles, right? China do not have any directive principles. Why? Because it's a communist state. It is not about the welfare of the people. It is welfare of the Communist Party, right? They say whatever the welfare of the Communist Party, it becomes the welfare of the people. In India, it is not so, right? It is borrowed from the Irish Constitution. So where this Constitution of 1937, it served as a source of inspiration. And originally, this Irish Constitution borrowed the DPSP from the Spanish Constitution. Right. So what is the purpose of borrowing? There might be something, right? So what that something is? I said it is going to be the foundation. Say, then what about fundamental rights? They also do a major role for the state. The state is going to protect your liberty. The state is going to give you equality. It is going to protect your life, right? So it's going to protect you against exploitation. It's going to give you religious freedom. A lot of things are going to be given by the state, right? Now, what is the need for this thing? If there are enough fundamental rights, what is the need? That means, right? Say we are categorizing rights into two things, right? One is justiciable. We see fundamental rights. So where when the rights are violated, what happen? You can have remedy in a court, justiciable, right? Then non-justiciable. What does non-justiciable mean? Say there are rights given, but they are not guaranteed by the constitution. If they are violated, right, you can have legal remedy, but not constitutional remedy, right? You cannot, right, so force the state to guarantee these rights, right? That is what the non-justiciable. And the directive principles are of such a nature of non-justiciable rights. So you may ask, sorry, if there is already a fundamental right, part 3, what is the necessity for part 4? Actually, right, part 3 is a guarantee, right, which the state should provide. Say it is more of civil and political content, whereas here it is more of socio and economic content. Say civil liberties can be given to all, political rights can be given to all, whereas socio-economic, can you guarantee? Article 14 to 18 is there, but still the state even prescribes certain special provisions for the weaker section. That's a violation of Article 14. Yes, definitely a violation of Article 14. But the state justifies it. How it says? For ensuring socio-economic justice. And that is why it's a temporary provision. Reservation has always been extended once in 10 years. It's not a permanent future because our constitution is that equality is permanent. So therefore, in coming to the socio-economic front, you cannot guarantee certain things. So to give money, I say, right, to make all people, right, rich. So the state gives you a promise to give work to all the people, to give, right, so all the needs to all the people, to give, right, so to make you a rich and resourceful person, right. What does it take a state to do that? What does the state need to do that? Resources, right? Only when the state have resources, then it can fulfill your needs. So now, whether it can be guaranteed? No. Where does the resource come from? Tax. Where does tax come from? Your earning. Where does earning come from? Your employment, right? If you have no employment, then what is the thing? Again, right? So it cannot be done. You cannot borrow from external, right, and give it to the people. So that's what the thing is. So India have an external debt, right? So the latest estimates is that for each and every one of us, right, so owe an external debt of 24,000 rupees, right? Each and every Indian wants a debt of 24,000 rupees. If we pay our debts, right, then we can ask our rights, right? Now in this scenario, the state cannot take care of all. It will act on a principle. What? According to need or according to merit. Which one is needed? You need merit, right? But other people are in need. You ask for right to education, employment. Some people ask for food. What is the priority? Automatically, then the state has to pass Food Security Act, right? Then it will ensure a public distribution system, right? So low cost distribution or free distribution of rice and wheat. So again, where does the money come from? So it's from the people resources, right? So that means that the state cannot ensure all the rights. So that is the reason some rights are being made non-justiciable, but nevertheless they are important for the welfare state, and that is why Part 4 has been brought into this constitution. Actually, it's but after much debate, right? People are asking why you brought this thing into the constitution. Say since it is not justiciable, what is the need for it? It's simply a surplusage. It is simply a moral direction. Say, like many constitutional experts call it as a moral homily. This moral homily. It has simply a moral value, doesn't have a legal or constitutional value. So that is then what is the use of it? So it is such a surplusage. But a deep understanding into it says that it's not a surplusage. It is something more than that, right? So what this DPSP is? First we go for the introduction, then we'll go for the articles, right? So part 4, it is part 4, which covers articles from Article 36 to 51. Say, I hope after finishing this, you can remember Article 1 to 51, right? So if I ask you fundamental rights, so at 12 to 35, do you remember? Yes. 1 to 11, right? Yes. Now 36 to 51, this is it, right? Say the first 51, see at the first instantly what it looked like. So whether I have to memorize this article, you don't need to memorize, right? Automatically it sets in, right? Then 52, it starts part 5, right? Executive, right? The executive power of the union shall be vested in the office of the president of India. 53, right? So then about the election of the president, 54, say it goes on, right? So automatically it comes in. Don't worry about it. So now, so going to the introduction, directive principles. They are instruments of instruction. They are instruments of instructions. To the state to carry on a welfare government. To carry on a welfare government. India borrowed DPSP from Irish Constitution of 1937, which itself had borrowed from, which itself had borrowed from the Spanish Constitution. Further, the government of India, she put further, the government of India before independence, further the government of India before independence had some instructions, had some instruments of instruction, had some instruments of instructions which became the immediate source of the DPSP. They are being added. They are being added in part 4. as a form of non-justiciable rights. They have been added in part 4 as a form of non-justiciable rights, which cannot be enforceable in a court of law. Why I said? Because at that time, India did not possess the resources. If we have enough resources, maybe in the near future we can bring it, right? So for the reason that the state may not have, for the reason that the state may not have resources to implement them. These are these are in the form of directives. These are in the form of directives which call upon the state, which call upon the state to provide a welfare government which can fulfill the ideals of the constitution, which can fulfill the ideals of the constitution.